Well, hi, Tiana. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Happy Friday. How are you
Happy
doing?
Friday. Everything's amazing.
Good. Awesome. I love to start the show with a couple of questions that I ask every single guest. And the first one is, are you spiritually active?
Yes,
Yes. Tell me more about like what that looks like and feels like for you. What does spiritually active mean to you?
spiritually active to me means that I actually have some type of daily ritual,
Mm.
and I do. And so I find that whatever that is, whether it's a specific devotional that I'm working through or a book that I'm working through, but it's making time every single day to take that time and just be quiet.
Mm.
I won't go so far as to say that I have a meditation practice because I really have monkey brain and have not really ever been able to just go totally, I'm the one that's like at the massage table going, can I have a pen and paper? Because I have a lot of things going on. But yet I don't want to talk to the therapist. I
Yeah.
mean, people are like, well, then you have I'm like, no, I don't want you to talk. I just want my brain to be able to download the information. So
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, so journaling, and I always kind of put journaling in air quotes because I I would say I journal in
Mm-hmm.
my spirituality, but it's not that I'm doing that to then read it again or to keep it for someone else to read. It's more about like, here's my grocery list for later. And I
Yeah.
journal some gratitude as well. So anyway,
I love that. When do you normally do that? Is that in the morning? Is it a nightly thing?
so
Does it just
yeah,
pop
so
up
in
in
the
your day?
morning, yeah, in the morning I do primarily the my spirituality, and then at night I do write one gratitude. That's like
Mm.
one thing I've done for a long time. I just have like a steno pad, and I mean, some days it's as simple as I'm home, and other days, it's
Oh,
longer, But yeah, I've done that for a long time. I do like just that kind of one word, one thought, the sunset, whatever it is, just to feel like I'm showing that gratitude back.
yeah. I love that. We'll talk about gratitude a little bit when we get into talking about all things money.
Okay.
um, and for those of the listeners that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I obviously know you very well. You've gotten to watch me literally grow up from being a small child to an adult woman over here, which is so weird. I'm still 12 in my mind. So, can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and your background?
Glad to, and it's a privilege to know you as an adult, Caitlin,
Oh,
and the woman
thank
that
you.
you've become. I was born in Ogden, Utah, raised in Indiana, and then I grew up in Tampa, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I attended Converse College in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and then finished my college experience at Florida State University with a degree in business as well as interior design restoration. And my first job was with a bank, and I was a branch manager, moved back to Tampa, Florida. Really enjoyed that experience, but had a father that was an entrepreneur and realized that, wait, I'm giving a lot of hours away and looking at the corporate ladder, like, wait, isn't there more? And I had unfortunately lost my father when I was a senior in high
Mm.
school. It's been 40 years this past Mother's Day, which just doesn't seem
Oh,
possible. And so, having that kind of spirit in me, if that makes sense, I thought, I want to try and figure out how to take this and do something else. And so, I was privileged to join a company that was opening entrepreneurial offices across the country in financial planning. And I joined them, moved quickly up with them, and was moved to Tucson in 1996 to head up national sales and national customer service, which now again seems nuts that they moved me from Tampa and Atlanta and to Tucson to travel the nation. So, but the nuts was that I was supposed to meet my husband, Jeff, whom I met at a bar downtown, and the rest is kind of history. He's lived here.
oh,
I've chosen to live here and raise our family, and I started Power Women Investing in 2006 with the intent to really find more joy for me. I knew that what I was doing in the corporate part of that, and again, I started this out with the entrepreneurial kind of idea, and yet then was really in a corporate C-suite environment. And
Yeah.
so really wanting to just do it on my own. And so I did that in 1996, and that has been a gift ever since. So we specialize in behavioral financial coaching, as well as value-based investing, and then overall holistic planning.
I love that. What was it like? I work in financial services as well, and I think things over time, just in general, in the quote unquote corporate or more structured working industries and environments, I'd say, have really evolved. But primarily for a very long time, they were male dominant, right? And still continue to be in some aspects. So, can you share like what was it like moving into financial services, financial planning, just generally as a woman who was young and like full of energy? I think a lot of people would find value in hearing like what that felt like, or maybe if they're scared to say, okay, I'm gonna do it. Like Tiana told me so.
I so number one, I always get the question like, why did you go into banking, out of college?
Yeah.
They were the only ones hiring. And the other reason is that they gave me a clothing allowance because I had to have a blue suit, pantyhose, blue pumps, and this little rosette thing that looked like a tie, but for women. So at the time, when I look back, I'm like, I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And now this person is saying, okay, that was nuts. Like, really,
Yeah.
when you think about it and you sit down and say, this is what you have to wear with a shirt that buttons up, Brooks Brothers, with the rosette, that's what I had to wear. They basically said, this is what you're wearing. So when you look at that and you think they were just making us little men, like literally.
Yeah.
And so
Oh, don't get me
now I'm like,
started.
this is really wrong. There's a lot wrong with that. But at the time, I was like, Mom, they're giving me a clothing allowance. Like, anyway.
Yeah.
I was early in my career with the company that I went with after the bank. The good news is that was owned by two people. One was a woman and one was a man, and they were best friends. And she, I would never say that she mentored me because I never have had a mentor. It's actually something that I think why I mentor so often, because I cannot believe, I would actually ask people and they'd be like, yeah, I'm not interested. I mean, no man wanted to mentor women, and most women didn't want to mentor women. And it was just, that part of our culture is a little odd. But I did excel and was always promoted in certain areas. And 2 different times I was on boards, I was the only woman. And again, when I look back, I wasn't invited to stuff. Like, they'd have meetings before the meeting. And so then I'd show up at the board meeting and like all these things have happened. And I'm like, well, where was I? Oh, we don't invite girls. Like, it was just so awful.
That's horrible.
And then I had 2 children within 15 months. And one of them, I got a big award. The kids, I don't know, I was like 10 years into the business, but I was still on that board. And one of them said, oh, here's to the girl that's always pregnant. And I'm like,
that's
so
horrible.
Yeah. So, but I don't let those voices in my head. But yet, on the flip side, I think it's important that I have to be honest, at the time, I didn't react to it. I just was like, whatever, I'm just beating my own drum over here, and you'll see me, you'll be in my dust at some point. And so I just never really listened. I don't know why that is, Caitlin. Like, meaning, I must have some special Teflon, because I meet a lot of women that affects you. And especially, I did not have a boss ever, a male boss, that ever I feel threatened by, degraded.
Sure.
I just didn't. They made money off of me, so they were always celebrating me. That piece in the culture of our wonderful financial business, unfortunately, that's not true for many, many women.
Yeah.
And that part of our business still frustrates me and is still present, 100% present. I still see it.
Yeah.
And so I feel for the women that for some reason I have this Teflon thing that I don't know why I was born with that. But for women that I would say don't give up on yourself. Meaning, it's not because something's wrong with you. There's something wrong with our system. And the way that we still are allowing that culture in this line of work.
Yeah. Well, it's also just so cool to see that you broke away from that and was very successful after having so much success in a setting like that.
Right.
Like the mental fortitude that it takes to not only be brave in, a space where maybe you are the only person that you look like or are, and then moving into a space that's totally your own and getting to like actually take up space there is just, it's so fun and exciting to watch. Not only you, but other women do that, be it in the financial industry or wherever they find themselves. So it's a very inspiring story for sure.
Thanks.
Barbie movie energy.
Yeah. I do. I always tell a story. I mean, the very first advisory board meeting I was invited to, and I was kind of surveying the room. They didn't have name plates, up, so it was just this big conference table, and I was one of the first. People are kind of milling around, and this gentleman looked over and said, "I'll have whatever." He ordered his coffee. I kind of did one of these. I said, "Oh, actually, I'll be sitting right there, and I expect that you're sitting all the way on the other end." Because I understood how the room worked, right? So in other words, I don't want to be near him at all. I don't want him to have any eye contact with me. And so it's important, I think, it's those little things. When you think about, you want to make sure you position yourself in a room with the power, right? The power triangle. I mean, there's just some key things that I think are really important. I don't know, you think, oh, that's basic, but a lot of people still don't know that. And it's, if you know somebody is going to challenge you or has whatever issues, you definitely don't want to sit across from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you want them as far away from you as possible, and you definitely don't want eye contact.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting, sometimes how we got to play the game. And when I say we, I mean everybody, truly. Those are just some things that you have to be conscious and aware of, even sometimes when you don't feel like it or don't feel like, ugh, this feels good. I get stuck in that loop a lot. And honestly, I've been reflecting a lot on my concept of money and the mindset that I have around money. And I kind of have sold myself of, oh, well, if I leave this corporate world, I'm going to be poor, or quote unquote, right? Or I'm not going to have it all, or I'm not going to be able to do the things that I want. And, I've had conversations with people who, I would consider them more on the woo-woo side of things, right? Who paint money as an evil picture, or the financial industry even as one. And so I always just think it's so interesting that we don't think that there can be a relationship between some of these very powerful, proven strategies to frankly get what you want, and also still be totally in your energy, of this is who I am, and you can take it or leave it, but this is how I'm going to show up day to day. So I find that very interesting. We think that we shouldn't play the game, and nobody wants to play the game, but everybody's got to do it at some point. So it's how are you going to play your game almost?
Well, and so two thoughts. One, I think it's extremely interesting the number of folks that say, well, I don't need money, I don't care about money. And I go, interesting. So oxygen is pretty much important too. Not to be weird, but money and oxygen you have to have. And whether you want to talk about the amount of money, that's a whole other conversation.
Totally.
But you have to have something to be abundant. And
right.
Number two is, if you want to make real change, make real money. And fight the change. Meaning fight what you think you're bantering against.
Right.
But without money, you're not going to win. And I'm not saying it's a win or lose or good or bad. It's just the reality of the space that we live in. And so it's owning that truth in that space. And, it's when folks will say, well, I don't want to, I want to filter how I'm going to invest. I said, that's awesome. But that's just like I'm going to filter on a website for a specific pair of jeans. And the more filter I give up, the less likely that a pair of jeans are going to show up.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I put too many filters in, I'm not going to have any options. And so you want to be cautious when you're building abundance, building wealth. Don't create too much of a filter. Makes
Yeah.
sense? So,
Yeah, it makes total
yeah.
sense. I also love jeans, and I will be
Well,
filtering. As a short little girl, I think to your point though,
right, right.
there's so much like storytelling going on around, what abundance means or what our relationship with personal finances should be, especially for a lot of people who are waking up to the idea of, I don't want to work in corporate America forever, or I want to be an entrepreneur, or, I want to do something completely different, like whatever your dream life is. I won't even tie it to career, because some people, that's not a huge aspiration for them either. So can you talk a little bit about like that relationship between like our values, spiritual or not, and our personal finances? Like, how are those two tied together? And what does that look and feel like for people that maybe either you've worked with or you've just observed in your planning practice?
So there's two sides of the brain. There's the intuitive side, and then there's the analytical side. And what I find is folks tend to show up with only their analytical side.
Yeah.
And those that don't have a strong analytical side then feel lots of emotions around money that don't really even need to show up at the meeting. Because I want to know the intuitive side. So it's important that you have both. And so I think that in the planning that I definitely am privileged to do with the folks that I meet is to help uncover both sides. Because the analytical piece, and I use an example, but net worth is everything I own minus everything I owe, that's my net worth. So that's the analytical side, right? And I say, okay, everything you own, everything. Your shoe collection, your purses, I mean, everything. This isn't to get a loan. This is like if I walked in your house and today was the last day you were on the planet, and I could walk around and say, well, this is what was important to them.
Yeah.
I can open your fridge. What's important to you? I literally could learn what's important to you, because what did you spend your money on?
Yeah.
I can see it in your house.
Sound bowls and crystals, if you came to mine.
Right? So does that make sense? That's a good thing. That's something. So
Totally.
That's everything I own minus everything I owe. So that's the analytical side. The intuitive side is, who are you? What is your worth? Friend, daughter, sister, cousin, niece,
Yeah.
yoga instructor, podcaster, passionate. I mean, you have to individually write that story, because if you don't, someone else will. So what are those descriptive stories that you want to tell about yourself that are positive in your net worth? The other thing I want in there is, did your soccer team win the gold in the 5th grade? I mean, your volleyball career, Caitlin, should be in there. I guarantee no one asked you about that.
Not anymore.
I lived that with you. That should be part of your story. Polly Pockets should be part of your story.
I remember those very well.
Those in a negative connotation should be part of your story. But you understand what I'm saying. So
Yes.
what is your positive net worth? And every year on everyone's birthday, my hope is that you're building that. What is something is new from the year before? Because when someone's 80, we barely ask them what they did for a living, let alone where they went to high school. We definitely don't ask them if they won Bluest Eyes as a baby, which is the coolest thing ever, which, by the way, is on mine. I won Bluest Eyes as a baby. My mom to this day talks about it. Well, you know how many babies are born with blue eyes? I mean, come on. But the point is, that was something she was super proud of at the time.
Yeah.
And I have green eyes for people that don't know and can't see me. So that's your net worth, right? Those are accomplishments. The other thing I love about you as a person doing it is that you can leave some of the past behind.
Mm.
Things that you don't want in your story, make sure you leave back there. And if someone wants to bring it forward, you can say, hey, by the way, that's not on here. That's actually not on my net worth statement.
I love
That's
that.
not how I describe myself. That's not how I'm going to be defined. And I'm no longer living that. That is in my past.
Yeah.
Then, what are my liabilities on the intuitive net worth? Do you owe someone an apology? Do you owe someone grace? Do you
It's
owe
beautiful.
yourself forgiveness?
Wow.
Because I don't care how many people I meet and how positive their net worth is on the analytical side. If they have not settled their debts emotionally, intuitively, and with their family and friends, they have nothing. They have nothing.
Wow.
And so that's the piece of planning that's so important. I can amass whatever. What am I going to actually do? How am I actually going to give? What am I going to really need? How am I going to spend? And what do I want? That's the difference. That's the difference. And that's the encouragement that I hope folks understand when they're, I don't know, looking at this industry. I mean, I'm not the only one that does holistic planning. I'm not the only one that does behavioral finance. But you want to find those people because that we, in my opinion, are the future of the industry.
Absolutely. I think you touch on a really, like, honestly sensitive topic for some people, which is like that abundance versus scarcity mindset. And I will say, like, I don't think this was directly spoken out of, people's mouths growing up. But money is such a sensitive topic because we think it's taboo or it's bad. It's got bad energy. And we can never have enough of it. But at the same time, it's just a tool. We give it so much energy. We allow it to have that power over our lives versus, to your point, taking a step back to say, whew, I'm good. Like, that stuff is going to work itself out for me to live the life that I desire and I want. And in order to do the things for the people that I do love, that I do care about, that's such a beautiful explanation. I don't know if I've heard you like explain it that way before because it is very intuitive. As I gear up to make this huge change in my life, I have never felt more settled, not necessarily on my balance sheet, right? But like, I feel so settled in my heart and with the relationships that I have and the people that will support me getting to whatever this next step is, that it's like, I'm rich, baby.
And that's opening that for abundance.
Yeah.
That risk to believe in yourself and believe in your network and all the things, but then being open to success. When I meet with folks and they want to jump, for lack of a better way to say it, it's easy for them to tell me what the worst thing that could happen. And I always say, okay, what if you're successful though? Like, what's the plan?
Yeah.
I mean, what if you really knock this out of the park? I mean, that's really what I find a bigger fear is. Because
it gives me like butterflies in my stomach when you just say that. It's crazy.
So you want to actually push yourself to think about how cool, what ultimate success means in that space without numbers involved. Just what would that look like? Would your life be different? Would you make, I always say, listen, if you really have to think about it, what if you won the lottery? Like, literally think about it, but that doesn't require work, right? That's like a crazy thing. But I'm saying, I always say, well, I don't know how to do that, Tiana. Okay, well, if I just right now gave you $1 billion, let's change it then. Let's change the mindset.
Right.
Because that's the piece, because that is the fear, truly. The fear of failing is really not the fear. The fear of being too successful is the fear.
Yeah.
Because that's going to require change.
Yeah, big change.
Which is super cool, though.
So exciting. It's funny. I just got back from a breathwork retreat a couple of weeks ago, and my teacher kind of picked up. He's extremely intuitive, like of course, and he kept picking up on me, but a lot of us in this group using the words like "I'm scared," "I'm fearful," and he was like, "You're not scared. You're the emotion that you are experiencing is not indeed fear. It is big energy." And when that comes through, like you don't sometimes know what to do with that, right? And so it's like, can you feel into it just a little bit more? Can you like literally physically breathe into that and experience what comes over you? And oftentimes, like when you hear, we haven't even used the word manifestation yet, but what you're talking about and like the behaviors of finance and managing your personal finances, as cheesy as it sounds, is that sense of like, ooh, does my heart feel full? That means I'm creating more room to receive even more, whether that be money, love, success, and however you define those things. Like I truly believe in that. It's just how do we convince enough people that that is, if someone finds them in a scarce, quote unquote, situation, right? Or they just lost their job or something very tragic or difficult happens in their life, like you can't bypass those emotions and that energy, but you can also take a moment to recenter yourself and ground into the feelings of gratitude, of generosity towards others. And it's like, how do we convince enough people that that is truly, and honestly myself too, that that is the behavior, the energy of money at the end of the day? I don't know. It's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer it.
I like I like how you just summarized that in a beautiful way, and you're
Thank you.
100% right. I mean, it. I think we'd have a hard sales job, but I do think that's very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
We're working on it. Just
We're working
by
on
just by
it. Look
being us,
out,
we're
look
doing
out. We're gonna come up with. It'll be quotable. How's that?
Yes. Yes. We love our quotes. We'll have cute little pink pens because I know you love your pink pens.
I do.
Speaking of, I think there's a lot of like narrative out there right now about the words literally financial freedom. And oftentimes that's tied to I'm traveling the world on like no budget, or I own 5 houses and I rent them all out, or I have a couple cars and that's like my cool thing. And those are all very materialistic examples. And so I'm curious, like, what's your take on what financial freedom is, and maybe what misconceptions people might have about that concept or that feeling?
I would say I would challenge someone to each person should define their own financial freedom.
Hmm.
I do think there is a lot of noise around that. There's the very loud one about that you should have no debts at all, and that makes you financially free. And I'm swishing my face a little because I believe that every plan is unique and individual because every person is unique and individual. And so, as much as you want to gravitate towards someone else's idea, let them be an idea, but do not buy into what they're living. No one should define your financial freedom but you. And so I would say, for just a global statement, that financial freedom is that you have enough. I mean, our mantra is you have enough, you are enough, and you will thrive. And so having enough is your definition of enough. But so many people don't think they're going to have enough. I'm like, well, what's enough? Let's figure it out. Let's figure out the numbers.
Oh my
So that
God.
you feel confident and comfortable in having enough. And then let's figure out that you are enough. You are enough. Just
Oh,
on your own 2 feet. You are enough. And you will thrive. Not survive. Survive is like barely making it.
yeah.
I want people thriving so that we're not just meeting your needs, which gives you financial freedom, but giving you your wants.
Beautiful. That is such a grounding and empowering statement. Like to have quote unquote enough I think is usually where everybody's minds go of like, what's that number on the check that I get every year? That's my salary, right? And I find myself up against that too, as I'm like, we talked about this, like, okay, how much money do I need to have in the bank to like cover like my expenses? And you were like, girl, what are your expenses? And so that's where like we can get tactical, but also like, do I plan on traveling for a few months after? I don't know, maybe. So make sure that you're thinking about those things as you put money away or spend now. I think it's really easy to hedge our bets on like future, right? I come from a retirement savings company where we preach like save, 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 which I so appreciate that has been ingrained in me. I literally had this conversation today at yoga with someone who also works at the gym that I work at, and asking me simple questions like what accounts should I open and things of that nature. I'm like, I'm not the best person to tell you that, one, because I'm not a financial planner and I'm not licensed to give you financial advice. But it was so grounding to know like I'm empowered with knowledge and with behavioral understanding to a certain degree to be able to make decisions for myself of what feels right to me. And I think that's really challenging for a lot of people to be like, okay, what really is enough, both in my heart and in my soul, as well as a number on a piece of paper. And I think a lot of folks have difficulty like, oh, well, this number means this is how much I am. And that's not true.
It isn't. And that's, again, where that's really important to create your own net worth. One of the things that I find folks get hung up on is the student loans. And
oh my gosh.
So, okay, so your net worth, you're going to look at that number and, constantly, but that is part of you, who you are. And you would not be where you are and who you are today. So let's get away from the numerical net worth, because you're driven by the fact that the loan is still there and we have to deduct it as a liability, and build it on the positive, intuitive net worth of what that's giving you every day. Because that's why you did it.
Yeah.
I mean, so what are the positives from that we're going to add to you as a human being that I'm able to share life with, right? I mean, we're all on the same planet together right now.
Yeah.
So,
and
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's fine. I'm good.
I was just going to say, you can't take all that stuff with you when you go either. So I would actually argue that intuitive side and consistently holding your worth, or that conviction in who you are, is actually the most important thing about your balance sheet, right? It's like, oh, cool, racked up a credit card. Here's why I did it. I know why, or even recognizing some behaviors that you don't love about yourself, right? And like making that shift for you, I think is really important too.
I agree.
Yeah, it's hard.
Good stuff.
You mentioned gratitude earlier. How do you embed gratitude into financial planning, or maybe some of the behaviors that we've already talked about? Like, how do you coach a client when they might be more in the I have nothing space, or I'm in a really scarce situation, I'll say. It's all temporary, of course, but how do you help somebody make that shift, or feel that intuitive net worth a little bit more?
We specialize really in folks find us, is lack of a better way to say it, when they're in a transition. And so, transitions can be positive, right? Marriage, new child, new job, moving. I mean, there's lots of positive transitions, and then there's all the negative ones, right? Death, divorce, disability, loneliness. I mean, so any of those, though, the where to start is where they are. And so one of the things I tell folks is that in any transition, just like stress, right? Positive and negative, how we view it. Then we need to take a moment, and I love how you said grounded, but we need to take a moment and be grateful for where we are in the space. And a lot of people question that, like, well, there's like icky stuff. I go, oh yeah. I mean, life is hard, really hard. And I've been through a lot of it. And let me
Yeah.
tell you, if somebody said you could go back with all the information you have today, go back and read, I have no desire to do that because I would not be who I am today. You
Amen.
have to go through the life. You wouldn't love who I am today if I hadn't gone through my life.
Yeah.
I am who I am today because of my life. So to go backwards and be like, now I'm smarter and I could, what? I mean, there's nothing about that intrigues me. And I think if you think about that, then you start to be grateful for what you've gone through. Which is, when you're in it though, Caitlin, and you know it and I know it. When you're in it, I'm here to tell you, I will be right there on the floor with you.
Yeah.
Because it is icky. And you have to go through that. And the folks that unfortunately get up too fast, I joke about like, you were sick yesterday and now you're back. You didn't really take enough time. So that's a very small example of just being, I have the flu, I really should stay home for 3 days, and you're home one day. No, you really need to allow. So that's true in transition.
Yeah.
And when life hands us really bad stuff, we have to wallow and figure that out and allow ourselves grief time, lost time, all the things. Your kid graduates from high school right now. Your kid's graduating from college. It's what you wanted. That doesn't mean you're not going to grieve. That doesn't mean you're not going to have a sense of loss. That doesn't mean you're not going to need to take a minute and try and cry and wallow. Because things will never be the same that they were before.
Yeah.
So all those transitions in our lives, all those times in our lives, whether we have chosen the change or change is forced upon us, it is important to allow yourself to give yourself time so that later you can be grateful for it.
I love that. I think that's really hard. I think a lot of us bypass emotions of, okay, I'm ready for what's next.
That's right.
And
And we almost speed through things. Like, oh, I took good pictures. Like, okay, yay, it's up on Facebook. Okay, yay, I'm not. And I'm like, wait, what just happened? Like, was I even there? That's like what I said. I'm like, a post goes up where I was, and I'm like, but I was there, and that is not the experience I had.
Yeah.
So be sure, Warren Buffett I always joke that it's my favorite quote because it has nothing to do with money. And it's don't sleepwalk through life. Don't sleepwalk through life. How many of us literally, you think about you drove home and you just made it home. You're like, well, how did I make it home?
Literally.
How many times in our lives are you sleepwalking? How many dinner parties are you sleepwalking through?
Yeah.
I mean, were you really there? How many family dinners are you sleepwalking through? I mean, everything in your life. And when you think about that, I don't really like the be present piece. I like the idea of sleepwalking because you are there, but you're literally asleep.
Yeah.
Not participating in your own life. So make a different choice. Either don't show up or truly show up.
Yeah.
Because I always say, if you can't show up wholly, I'd much rather you not show up. And so I think it's being confident in yourself to make better choices and put better boundaries. And go ahead and just say, I'm not going to be able to show up. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't want just the human, I don't want your physical self there. That's not what I was looking for. That's not what I was looking for. I was looking for your emotional self to show up.
Oh, I love that so much. You might always hear about FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. It's like, actually, we have so much FOMO about life that we're just missing out because we're thinking about the FOMO versus, like, to your point, like letting yourself move through emotions and it's so cheesy, but like the duality of life, to experience the highs, you got to experience the lows. And that doesn't mean necessarily anticipate all the lows or obsess over the lows. But it does mean, one of my mentors describes it as being fiercely present, like using the energy that you have every single day to be exactly who you are in that moment, to like fully go with that and own it. Because to me, it takes way more like physical, mental, emotional energy to show up fully than it does to not to. But that's why so many people don't do it. But I think that shows, right? Oh, I just got a little
I
thumbs
know,
up
I was
note.
just laughing
That was
about
kind
it.
of cool. I didn't know it did that.
It's supposed to be. Is it
Some
like
jazz hands.
fireworks? Well, that's because I like my jazz hands, so I'm always
Yeah. I know for any
it's
parts of the video, people are
actually
going to be
happening.
like, these two
Right.
ladies talk with their hands.
We're gonna create
um,
some. Yeah. Anyway.
yeah, but all that to say, like, I think it's very brave to show up every single day as who you are, even when it's like a shit day, you know? So I don't know if I was going anywhere else with that, but like
No,
just
I think that.
acknowledging and
Yeah.
reestablishing
I,
what you said.
and I do think that there might be someone that just kind of is listening to that and thinking, well, there are times that I need someone just to sit. I'm not saying you need to show up and be all talky.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying though that you're not sleepwalking. You're not just showing up and falling asleep.
Yeah.
So you can be with somebody and there can be no talking. You have shown up for that other human.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to do anything.
Yeah.
They need you to just be there. That's what I'm talking about though. That's actually
Yeah.
the best kind of showing up, in my opinion.
Totally. The intention behind it is
Yes.
what actually has the impact. Yeah.
It's showing that you're there with them, period. And you're in their emotional space.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Emotions and money.
because they're both really fun. I mean, really.
Yeah.
When you are able to see someone's growth, and I will say, when I have ladies in here that are going through divorce, going through the death of a spouse, and 2, 3, 4 years later, I mean, I'll say to them, I wish I had pictures. I'm like, I don't take pictures of people. But I said, I wish I had a picture because the person that is now sitting across from me is confident, empowered, happy, joyful, and grateful.
Yeah.
Versus the person 4 years ago that thought, I don't even know how I made it here today to deal with this. And that's in my opinion, that's the gift I get, is that I only am a very small part of the work that they've done, but they've done the work.
Yeah. That's the golden payment, right? And I think that's another bottom line too, is like, you don't have to do something you don't want to do to find abundance. Like, if that is the ultimate feeling that just lights your heart on fire, that's amazing. I can just picture you doing your little
Oh yeah.
hand clap. Yeah. You're rubbing your hands together, getting all excited. And that's so inspiring. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I've seen you do it enough times. I remember that very well.
Oh, I love that.
So thinking about maybe some of our listeners who are either like, oh, I want to get my finances in order, or I want to start thinking about this a little bit more logistically, critically, for what this means for me. What are a couple pieces of advice for someone to either get started or just shift their mindset a little bit more around their personal finances?
I think that just like kind of 3 practical tips, for lack of a better way to say it, but is to know what you spend. Know what you spend. So really track what you spend and be sure you're getting all those subscriptions, all the things that are automatically coming out, and what is that you're spending weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, like what is your net number you're spending? Then once you know what, why? Why? Because one of the things that I'm even looking at is we have a lot of subscriptions. And here I talk about that. And I'm like, and now we're past the time of binging and all these other things on binge watching this show and that show. I mean, couldn't even tell you, Caitlin, last time I actually watched television. Or even on my iPad. I mean, streamed something, I think is the right term I want. But the point is that why then am I paying for all these things? And so it's what I'm spending, but then I need to ask the why. Because if the why is justified, it's your money, you're earning it, then I say, okay, now I can say, that is important, that's on my budget list. That is, and I don't like the word budget, and I can't believe I just used it, now I've used it twice, but because instead I want to know what you spend. Okay? And then create a savings habit. Because I find that if you know what you spend and you actually figure out the why, you will uncover things that you're like, well, I don't know why I'm spending money on that. That seems silly. So I could remove that, and that opens the opportunity for me to save. And it's not this, I can't save, I already spend all my paycheck. Okay, well then what are you spending it on?
Yeah.
So it goes all the way full circle. Because
Yeah.
if you are work for a company that has a match, I need you saving to that match. That is free money you're leaving on the table, period. That is the only global statement you'll ever hear me make. I don't care I don't care anything else about it. If they're offering you a 2% match, a 3% match, a 4%, I want you to be maxing out that match. That is free money you're leaving on the table, period. And the rest, how are you going to do it? Go backwards. What are you spending? Why are you spending it? And I promise you, there's going to be something that uncovers. For me, it was subscriptions. And now we're figuring it out. Like, why do I have Sirius XM? I came along like, I'm in my car. I listen to podcasts on my phone. What am I? Why is my car seems to be like I'm paying for things in my car, and if I had a driver, and my husband's like, yeah, you're not getting a driver. So yeah, but like, what are you spending?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I also think that we have to be really, I don't like the word disciplined, but we have to be strong in our habits in keeping track of those things. Like that's usually where I have fallen off the wagon up until recently. But that's because like retail therapy is a perfect example. Are you just spending money on clothes? Okay, well maybe you had a trip coming up, or I'm a yoga teacher. I buy leggings like it's my freaking job. But I've been better. But I justify that with like, oh, I'm teaching classes all the time and I want to look cute while I do it. To me, that is good enough. However, to the outside eye, it might be like, you have a problem, right? And it's like, dude, that's a job that I have. Like, I want to look good while I do it. However, am I filling a hole? Is that bringing up icky feelings when I'm like, oh, I just spent $100 there that I didn't need to spend? Okay, it's already happened. Or you can return it. But like, it's already happened. Let those emotions once again come up, and then now you can make a change. Like, it's still in your power to do that. I think we feel powerless sometimes when it comes to that stuff. It's like, my vices. It's like, girl, you can stop buying leggings. Treat yourself every once in a while.
Well, and I mean, I'm the first to admit that retail therapy is one of my, it's like, it makes me feel as good as going on a hike, which is a problem. If you said, Tiana, do you want to go on a hike or do you want to walk every aisle in Target? I can tell you which one I'm picking. I'm going to Target.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean
Let me smell every candle in the candle aisle at Target.
I'm at least going to experience what's happening there. And so I think that doesn't mean you can't go places. None of shoulds, woulds, can'ts, whatever.
Totally.
But I think it's the why. I think you've hit on that. And then understanding where that emotional piece is. I talk a little bit about that in anything that you're spending money in, right? And so, yes, retail therapy is an easy one. Points of sale places, really easy. Now, all the ads on your phone, I'm like,
oh, God.
It's so difficult for folks that really do. That is part of an emotional void that we all, and you're like, well, gosh, I could figure out how to wear that sometime. I'm going to wear that sometime, or it sure look cute on her, so it'll look just as cute on me. And I remind myself, I grew up, Caitlin, where we had layaway. And so you would find the dress, and then you would go visit the dress weekly and put down your $5 or $10 until you bought the dress. And so I have found that I'm better now at putting things in the cart, and I've just restricted myself. You are not buying something the minute you buy it. See it.
Yep.
Put it in the cart, wait 24 hours. I set a calendar, of course. But there are times that I don't even remember what it was that I put in a cart.
Yes.
And then I'll get an email that says, you forgot something in the cart. Here's a coupon. And I'm like, well, clearly I don't need it if I didn't, if I didn't remember, it was even in the cart. So
Yep.
I would just encourage you, if that's something, to just put it in the cart, put the leggings in a cart, and then the next day be like, I still deserve them. Or I
Yeah.
still feel like they are validated. I can validate them. Because that will then not have you go through some of those highs and lows. And so just put them in the cart. Put them in the
I
cart.
love that.
Yeah.
Is that tip number 2, or you shared one?
I said, know what you spent. Okay, see, now balloons are coming everywhere on
Yeah. Whoa, this is
So
cool.
know what you spend is number one, and then number 2 is know why you spend it. Does that make sense? So those
Yep.
kind of go together. And then 3, yes, I love that. Just keep it in the cart. Put it in the cart.
Beautiful. So much
Yeah, I
fun.
like that.
We all have something that we love
Yes.
to purchase. And so if you're listening and it's not leggings for you, maybe it's hiking gear, or maybe it's a cool experience or a trip, right?
Or great food, or a certain,
Yeah.
or I mean, it. That's where I say it's 100% a judgment-free zone, because we all have the right to spend our money on whatever we want to spend it on. Period.
Amen.
So, but just know everyone's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter.
There are no shoulds, besides the 401k comment.
And I never make global things either, like, that individual, unique.
Of course.
And then I'm going to piggyback on that for a minute, because you talked about, the number of folks that, especially maybe in your generation, that are instead like, I don't really want to go with that company that has those benefits. And I would just say that if you're with a company that has those benefits, you absolutely have to do that. If you're not, there are absolutely a lot of options
Yeah.
to be sure that you're saving. And again, it's reminding yourself that you are the most important bill that you need to pay. So it's making sure that you're saving something. And that's where I go to, listen, it sounds crazy, but $1 a day. I mean, $1 a day. And so you start looking at what are some of those constant habits. Well, could I just give up Dutch Bros once a week? I'm now at $1 a day. I now met it. I mean, now it's 6. I can't even believe it. Anyway, we could have a whole podcast on just what's happened with drinks and how expensive they are.
Oh, yeah. It's
And the fact that we pay for water, and I grew up drinking out of a hose. But, it's amazing I'm alive.
yeah. But we're alive.
I love that I'm a Gen Xer. We're small and mighty.
Yes. Well, it's that perspective that's helpful, It's like the things that feel very normal to other people in different age groups, right? Like it's just, it helps you question what reality is currently.
Right. It's great. The fact that everyone carries around this like gallon jug thing all the time, it's like they're.
I have mine right here. It was a gift, mind you.
They're emotional pet though. I'm laughing. Every time people come in, and I'm like, what are these giant water jugs?
Yes. I'm sure you've seen all the jokes of like.
Yeah, the reality is that we now what we know, we do need to be drinking. I mean, it's not that, somehow I did just slip through. Somehow I slipped through the cracks.
Well, I think it's a great point though. Like I have noticed just by tracking my spending, I've been spending a lot of money on coffee, like out.
Yeah.
But anytime I think back about that, I'm like, I was with so and so catching up. I was having like a work date with my boyfriend. I was like spending time with someone I love. I was having a day for me. And so I can recall all those things. It's not like I'm buying 20 Starbucks a day, but it has in a good way, like a positive emotional attachment of a memory or something that to me like adds to my net worth statement, right? Oh my God, that was the day I prepared for like my podcast with Tiana and got to come up with all the questions and like make a plan with her. Like, cool. Then I had my iced coffee, my emotional iced coffee by my side. and that's okay.
Yeah, and so you just did what we were talking about. So what you're spending, and then the why. And
Yeah.
so I think that it's getting away from sleepwalking, right? It's getting away from, do I always just do that because that's what I always do? And that's the why piece of what you're spending. And so
Yeah.
Finding time to do that, though, well, I'd rather just watch TikToks or YouTube. I mean, so I would encourage everybody that's listening, just say, you know what, whatever, I mean, pick a Saturday, I don't care. Pick a Monday, I don't care. But say, I'm going to give myself 20 minutes. Set a timer.
Yep.
I'm going to give myself 20 minutes. The minute the 20 minutes is up, then I'm going to do something to reward myself for just dealing with what I'm spending. And it's going to probably take you more than 20 minutes, but at least it's a start. But what I find is, all of a sudden we're 7 days in, and we're like, well, I don't know, I have no time. You did. We all got the same amount. So I talk a lot about that. I mean, I take chunks of my day all the time. I do 10 minutes here, 14 minutes here. I mean, my team thinks I'm crazy, but the amount I can get done because I do it in these small little bites, where then I focus on that exact thing for that amount of time. And the minute the timer goes off, I'm done. I stop thinking about it. I move on. I walk around the building. I move on to the next thing. But you have to make yourself a priority. So we could do that, right, with eating right. We could do that with exercise. We could do that with sleeping. I could go down the list. You have to add money to that. And that's where that taboo, when you mentioned earlier, no one was like, oh, well, you know, we don't. What? That's like sex. Somebody said you should have a podcast on money and sex. Sex is the same thing. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's still taboo. I'm like, could we not just talk about it?
Yeah.
They need to talk about it. They need to talk about their emotions around it. Those two things, in my opinion, go hand in hand. And so set timers to talk about your intimacy with your partner. Set timers to talk about your money with your partner. Whether that's
I love that.
Whether that's a significant other, whether that's the person that you're married to, whether that's just the love of your life that you actually don't even live with right now.
Yeah.
You have to have those tough conversations and just set a timer, because you will continue to talk, which is just the truth. We do.
Yeah.
We always continue to talk and tell a story. And then reward yourself as a couple or as a person, and make sure that you are doing something that's then mindful, that is actually going to create joy for the two of you, whatever that looks like.
Yes. Oh, I love that advice. I mean, I used to hate Sundays. I got the scaries real bad of like, oh, I got to work tomorrow. I got to get the groceries, or I got to do the laundry. And now, like, I've much more opened my life generally to like, what are those habits? When do they need to get done? Nobody said they had to be on a Sunday. But one of my favorite things to do on a weekend morning, or even like early in the afternoon, go get my iced coffee, sit at a brand new coffee shop I've never been to, take 30 minutes, go through like my transactions and all my different accounts and say, cool, this went to savings, this went to spending, yada, yada, yada. And before you know it, I'm like, it is a habit now. And it feels so good because I'm like, I am so clear on, ooh, shoot. April, I spent a lot of money on things I didn't need to do. Like, I didn't need to spend money on. I didn't want to spend money on. I just kind of did it. And so it's like, okay, now I feel empowered to say no when those opportunities come up in May, or in the moment to be spontaneous and say, oh my God, I'm at the farmer's market and I'm going to buy a brand new chapstick from a local brand because that's what's resonating with me now. But yeah, treat yourself. Bottom line, go get that iced coffee. Sit there with your bad self and keep track of stuff. That's the way you build the habit.
Absolutely. I love that.
What's the word you use for budget instead? Maybe we should dispel that term.
Just spending. What do you spend your money on?
Spending. Beautiful. I love that.
You know,
Spending.
A budget sounds like very restrictive.
Yeah.
It goes with diet. I don't like the word diet. Diet is lifestyle. What does your eating lifestyle look like? I mean, they're the same thing. I mean, and then exercise. I mean,
movement. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't use exercise anymore.
Sleep and so, I have a word for the year every year, and this year's word is rest. And it kept coming to me, and I'm like, rest? And so then I was like, well, I can make an acronym out of that. And so it's relax, engage, sleep, and try. And relax is to pause before speaking, before making a decision. Pause, just take a minute, actually let what the person's asking or sharing, make sure that you are really hearing what they're saying. Engage is to just re-engage in things that bring me joy. sleep is to make sleep a priority. And then
Amen.
try is to try new things. There's no reason that I say no to so many things that are just outside my comfort zone because I don't know how to do it or I've never done it, and I'm a perfectionist. I like to be the best, and I like to look the best when I show up, and that's silly. I should just try things. And so it's been a great word for me this year. And so for those of you that maybe don't set a word for the year, I love it. I think it's an intention. I've done it. It's my, I think, 15th year. It really, and so it's in everything that I try and do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that rest though. So the other thing that I'm finding is in my career, circling all the way back to kind of where we started in this conversation, I am kind of looking for that runway to land, right? I'm in this last kind of 10 years, and you're looking for the airport to take off from, is the way to kind of think about that. And when you really are thinking about that, and during those years that you are working and to keep the plane flying, because it has to still land and gas up and all the things. But when you start to look for the runway that you want to land and do something else, it's time for me not to necessarily be up in front and to be, or even I was joking, be behind the scenes as the mom that's running everything in the puppet show behind the scenes, and really you're just, I need to just be in the audience. And that's that rest piece for me. I want others to be on the stage. I want others to be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I want to be in the audience cheering and mentoring and celebrating what I'm able to see as I figure out this next 10 years. So that's kind of, I don't know, I think if there's listeners that are actually thinking, where is your landing? You really do want to start kind of giving thought to that.
I love that. That's a really good, easy metaphor to follow. Like visually, we've all seen a plane take off and land.
That's right.
Well and not so well. Yeah. No turbulence here. There's always going to be turbulence. It's okay.
No turbulence. Makes you think your mom hates planes. So I'm like, she's going to be like, that is not a great analogy.
Yeah, she's like, that's actually giving me PTSD. Thank you. Driving a car, whatever. Pick your vehicle.
With her own metaphor, but that's mine.
Yeah. I love it. Just to wrap this up, I have a few quick little rapid fire questions that I'd love to ask all my guests. And the first one is, what is your favorite part about the human experience?
Being here at this time and being able to celebrate it with the people that I come across. I mean, it's a gift to be alive at this moment with certain people. I mean, it really is. And I can't believe I'm privileged to be living this world with them.
I love that. Why do you think spiritual connection is important?
I believe that if you can look in the mirror and see yourself, see your truth, but actually believe in something beyond yourself, have a spiritual connection outside of yourself, that's what creates hope. Where I think folks get tripped up is that it's all about them, and therefore if you are worshiping yourself, you're going to let yourself down. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
And therefore then that leads to despair or other things. And if you're able to look beyond yourself and then say, oh wait, I'm able to look back, that's the hope. That's what gives me hope. If instead it was all on me, oh my goodness. So I think it goes back to earlier when I said about being able to forgive yourself. I mean, it gives you the opportunity to say, wait, I actually can look at this and I can forgive myself.
Yes. Oof, that happened. Move on. Yeah. I love that. What's a book or a resource that you'd recommend for our listeners to learn more about what we've talked about today?
I'm currently reading Mind Shift, and I can't remember the author's name, but I will say it's extremely powerful. I'm really enjoying it, and I think that it does definitely hit on some things that we've talked about. I also read Atomic Habits during the shutdown, as I like to call it, And I used some of those tools that are in that book, which is basically habit stacking, where you already have a habit, like I brush my teeth every morning, and then I added meditation. So, or my form of meditation, we kind of talked about that. And then the third one is, I really like the book From Good to Great. And the reason I do is that we all are supposedly striving for greatness, right? We want to be a better version of ourselves the next day or even in the next hour. And what I want to remind folks is, though, sometimes when you're striving for greatness, don't forget about all the good that's around you in the meantime. And I find sometimes we get way too focused on our goals and what we're personally trying to achieve, and we really forget everything else around us. And so it's really important to focus on the good around you. The other thing that's in that book is talking about who's on your bus, who are your people, and then what seats are they in, and are they in the right seats, and should you maybe take some off the bus? And when I think about that, it's not just in family, friends, but advisors. And a lot of us are with somebody because, well, that's who I went to college with, or that's who I met down the street, or what. I would encourage you to get a second opinion, because what I find is that relationships get stale and people get lazy. They just do. And they think that the relationship they have with you allows them to be lazy and stale and not actually do what's in the best interest of you. Whereas a stranger is going to maybe work harder for you because they actually want your business and want to earn what you bring to their practice and what they can do in their life. And so I always say disruption is one of the best things that you can do for your life. Create disruption. Create disruption.
We love that. Big change, big energy. It's fun.
And people are just, that's what you're doing, right? Big high five.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Create disruption. Things are stale, you need to create disruption. I mean, I'm like, it can be super simple, silly things, like park your car in the front instead of the back. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but disrupt your life.
Yeah.
Disrupt it.
Absolutely.
Because that's what will save, if it's worth saving, that's what's going to save whatever relationship that you are finding or whatever in your life is like, disrupt it.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard once, it's like your brain, your mind will always choose a comfortable hell versus like a blissful, other experience that you just didn't even know was blissful, because it's like you didn't give yourself the opportunity to change it. You just kept doing what you were doing, and that's literally hell. I'm pretty sure that's in Dante's Inferno, in that book that I had to I had to read in high school.
Paraphrase, but you did well. I think that's I had kind of forgotten about that, and I love that because it is so much easier to go to comfort. So much easier.
Yeah. Amen. And last but not least, where can our listeners find you on social media, online, all that good stuff?
So we are on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And website is Power Women Investing. And so whether they put the things before or after, but Power Women Investing. And then, we have a YouTube channel. There's not very much on it yet, but that is coming with more of our kind of Tuesday tips. I do Tuesday tips every Tuesday at 9:30 Pacific Coast time or Arizona time with Power Women Investing. So that's kind of a fun thing for folks if they want to tune in, but it's also there, so you don't necessarily have to be there live.
Cool. I love that. Tuesday tips with Tiana. Triple T. Cool. Well, thank you so much for it's like Triple D, like Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Everybody loves that show. They'll love your YouTube channel.
How do you solve that, though?
I think he stopped eating a lot of it and has people do it for him now because it's probably not very good for you physically. But anyway, thank you so much. This was such a fun episode to record, and obviously just having you on the show and seeing how far we've come. It's like so weird to think that you are the same human that I was a little girl with, and now I'm a 28-year-old woman. So I just appreciate all your wisdom and all the things that you've shared with me over the years that I've known you. So I appreciate you.
Proud of you, Caitlin.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it. Cool. All right. Bye.